The doctrine of simplicity is a set of values and ideologies about computer software, stating that computers should be easy, natural, and simple to use and learn. It has various forms and appears throughout human-computer interaction research and design practices, such as inexplainable AI research, minimalist instruction, the concept of abstraction gradient in end-user programming, and gesture elicitation studies. Widely used instruments, such as the System Usability Scale and the NASA TLX Cognitive Load Index, evaluate designs based on simplicity and ease of use. The doctrine of simplicity is a ubiquitous concept in interface design, but it's important to consider the implications of applying it. The history of user interface design arguably began with the creation of textual programming languages, which served as the basis for instructing computers. The mathematization of computer science and programming languages was a result of the discipline's early struggle for legitimacy. The 1960s and 70s were characterized by global changes in attitudes towards student empowerment, the export of democratic values, and the emergence of computing as a symbol of the new information age. The introduction of the graphical user interface in the 1980s marked a major shift towards simplicity, which became a marketing and competitive advantage. However, the power of programmers and the software industry was consolidated, as end users were unable to describe new behaviors without their help. End user programming research has ever since tried to overcome this limitation, but the legacy of mathematization still looms over these efforts. In the 2000s, web technologies grew in their interactive potential, and websites and pages became applications to be used. However, the cultural expectations of the static web persist, and users expect to use web applications without investing effort to learn the interface. In today's climate, first impressions of software usability are critical for commercial success, leading to a moral hazard of making software appear more usable by making it less useful. The design of commercial software aimed at discretionary users has fallen into a Nash equilibrium, which is not Pareto efficient, putting pressure on designers to hyper-optimize for ease of use without learning investment, but which may not result in the best long-term user experience or empowerment. So this has created a suboptimal equilibrium, similar to the prisoner's dilemma, where the optimal solution would have been for both parties to cooperate. Products optimized for long-term use can lose out to those which appear easier to use on a preliminary evaluation, resulting in a market environment where ease of use is prioritized over long-term user experience and empowerment. There are many common examples of concepts, skills, and tools that are hard to learn, which may take years and thousands of hours of practice, but those who learn them have transformed themselves and their minds. Mathematics, language, writing, playing a musical instrument, playing a sport. Almost any human activity worth doing falls into this category. This includes spreadsheet software such as Microsoft Excel and Google Sheets, design software such as Adobe Photoshop and Autodesk AutoCAD, digital audio workstations such as Apple's Logic Pro and Ableton Live. It includes specialist applications in domains as wide as accounting, urban planning, architecture, astrophysics. Indeed, almost every discipline and profession is served by software tools that form a core and indispensable part of its practice. These applications are used intensively and over long periods of time, often entire careers. I call this kind of software praxisware. It is in praxisware that the trade-offs between superficial simplicity and long-term user experience are most acute. This software aims to facilitate rich and complex activities that are antagonized by the ideal of simplicity. In response, we have seen both a tool belt style of computing emerge, where software tries to be minimal and modular, as well as in-app teaching such as callouts and dialogues to help the user learn an interface. The rise of in-app teaching as a design response to bridge the dissonance between users' expectations of minimal learning and the complexity of modern software, has had limited effectiveness. It assumes users only need to learn just in time when performing a specific task, but this can be distracting and relies on accurate modeling of the user's knowledge and intent. Instead, a more empowering approach is for users to learn ahead of time and have an awareness of the possible capabilities of the software, shifting learning from being task-oriented to capability or vision-oriented. This changes the nature of the task itself and empowers users in different ways. For example, a spreadsheet user who knows how to write formulas will approach the same task differently from one who does not. The desire for ahead-of-time learning might be more mainstream than previously thought, as evidenced by the millions of TikTok and Instagram users who follow influencers who teach complex software tools. This challenges the assumption that users are not interested in ahead-of-time learning and suggests a need to re-evaluate the role of learning materials and the user learning journey in interface design. I propose that easy to use is an inappropriate criterion for evaluating feature-rich praxisware and call for negotiated complexity, which arises from optimization for intensive, long-term use in consultation with communities of practitioners. This approach involves the assumption that users will invest months or years in ahead-of-time learning and deliberate practice, and acknowledges that complexity is a trade-off between time invested in learning a tool and the power it gives the practitioner. The agenda for negotiated complexity in praxisware has implications for research and design. Rather than usability as a universal property of a user interface with respect to some notion of what a monolithic user might find intuitive and natural, we define usability as a function of an interface paired with well-designed learning and instructional materials. We consider investment in learning and instruction as a first-class citizen that participates with and complements the design of the system. We reward longitudinal research that engages seriously with practitioner communities and accommodated within the academic cycle, perhaps by developing new methods for evaluating the contribution of an ongoing longitudinal study or new tracks that prioritize such work. We begin to shift customer culture when appropriate to redress the adverse commercial incentives for simplicity and to save ourselves from the prisoner's dilemma. While this may seem challenging, loci of deliberate learning such as TikTok seem like a good place to start.